Let's talk about the libs of TikTok. Probably one of the dumbest fucking accounts online has had a major article written in the Washington Post, and the conservative movement is fucking losing it. Every single conservative influencer is absolutely losing their mind. Absolutely losing their fucking mind. It all started with a Glenn Greenwald tweet. He was the signal for the bat signal. He was the bat signal for right-wing media and influencers to attack. Taylor is about to expose the private citizen behind some anonymous account on Twitter. And when people criticize her for it, she and her friends will claim Taylor is the real victim, and anyone criticizing this type of journalism will be guilty of causing her trauma. One more time, you have the absolute right to criticize harshly the work of anyone who published the articles in the West's most powerful newspapers, one owned by one of the world's richest men, and don't let anyone guilt you or manipulate you into believing you don't. Only the narcissists in corporate media could take someone who grew up in Greenwich wealth and Swiss boarding schools, who regularly harms the lives of ordinary citizens with their massive journalistic platform, and tell the public she's the victim and can't be criticized. Now, this is what Taylor does to teenagers, to obscure women on the internet, now to anonymous Twitter use. That's what arouses her. He's sexualizing this. This is even fucking more creep shit. But remember, the real victim is Taylor and her colleagues who publish articles in Jeff Bezos' newspaper. Coddle them. This is the framework corporate journalists are trying to construct and force you to accept. They can criticize, expose, bully, and destroy anyone they want. No limits. They're whispered reference journalists. You can't criticize how they'll use their power. That's harassment. Fucking unbelievable. Taylor, after sobbing on national TV 2 weeks ago, claiming she's a victim of harassment, showed up at the house of the relatives of the citizens behind Libs of TikTok and badgered them. According to Libs of TikTok, the bullies claim to be bullied. What's the new journalistic principle being applied? It is now permissible for journalists to investigate and expose the real identity of any anonymous social media user, or is it just permissible if the anonymous social media user has a certain kind of politics? Journalism isn't just about exposing things for the sake of it. It's about exposing matters in the public interest about powerful institutions. Using Jeff Bezos' money to expose private citizens for having bad politics is gross. One last attempt to clarify the rules. Is it okay for people to show up tomorrow at Taylor's house and the homes of her relatives to ask questions about her? I have a feeling that wouldn't be applauded, even though Taylor, unlike Twitter users she exposed, is a public figure. I feel confident that if Fox crew did to Taylor what Taylor did to this citizen, show up at the homes of her relatives to dig for dirt, a national media and mental health crisis would be declared. That's because, again, this has nothing to do with journalism, just politics. Now, Glenn is framing this as anonymous Twitter anonymous, social media account being bullied by big bad Washington Post reporter. Now, what does the Lib of TikTok do? What do the Libs of TikTok account do? Is it just someone just posting memes? Are they just having bad politics and they like Donald Trump? What exactly does the Libs of TikTok do? I have a few questions for Greenwald. What's the name of the Twitter account? How many followers does it have? Does it have political impact? How would you characterize its politics? Does the account foment animosity toward a minority group? What's your relationship with that account? As it happens, many of these questions are answered in this fine article. To be clear, Greenwald and company want a world where there is social penalty for being trans, but not for being transphobic. That's not the current world. So they want a special carve out of anonymity for trans shaming in order to create a semblance of that world. That's exactly right. What does Libs of TikTok do? It finds tiny accounts on TikTok and says, look at this freak. They're trying to groom your children. And it doxes people to try to get them fired from their jobs. So wait a minute. The Libs of TikTok account, the entire purpose of the Lib of TikTok account is to find anonymous small social media users because of their politics and ruin their lives. But they want to remain anonymous while doing it. Truly amazing strategy, truly amazing brain Glenn Greenwald has. Meet the woman behind Libs of TikTok, secretly fueling the right's outrage machine. A popular Twitter account has morphed into a social media phenomenon, spreading anti-LGBTQ plus sentiment and shaping public discourse. On March 8th, a Twitter account called Libs of TikTok posted a video of a woman teaching sex education to children in Kentucky, calling the woman a predator. The next evening, the same clip was featured on Laura Ingram's Fox News program, prompting the host to ask, when did our public schools, any schools, become essentially grooming centers for gender identity radicals? Now, Glenn has no problem with this. Glenn has no problem. Ensconced in his multi-million-dollar compound in Brazil, and he wants to expose teachers to scrutiny by the far right. Libs of TikTok reposts a steady stream of TikTok videos and social media posts, primarily from LGBTQ plus people, often including incendiary framing designed to generate outrage. Videos shared from the account quickly find their way to the most influential names in right-wing media. The account has emerged as a powerful force on the internet, shaping right-wing media, impacting anti-LGBTQ plus legislation, and influencing millions by posting viral videos aimed at inciting outrage among the right. But we need to let this person remain anonymous, chat. By the way, if you're a free speech absolutist, this is what free speech looks like, motherfucker. Eat shit. The anonymous account impact is deep and far-reaching. Its content is amplified by high-profile media figures, politicians, and right-wing influencers. Its tweets reach millions, with influence spreading far beyond its more than 648,000 Twitter followers. Libs of TikTok has become an agenda setter in right-wing online discourse, and the content it surfaces shows a direct correlation with the recent push in legislation and rhetoric directly targeting the LGBTQ plus community. Libs of TikTok is basically acting as a wire service for the broader right-wing media ecosystem, said Aaron Drennan, LGBTQ program director for Media Matters, a progressive media watchdog group. It's shaping public policy in a real way and affecting teachers' ability to feel safe in their classrooms. The account has been promoted by podcast host Joe Rogan. It's been featured in the New York Post, the Federalist, the Post Millennial, and a slew of other right-wing news sites. Meghan McCain has retweeted it. The online influencer Glenn Greenwald has amplified it to his 1.8 million Twitter followers while calling himself the account's godfather. Last Thursday, the woman behind the account appeared anonymously on Tucker Carlson's show to complain about being temporarily suspended for violating Twitter's community guidelines. Let's show you that clip because it's truly fucking amazing. Truly fucking amazing.
So obviously Twitter doesn't exist so we can share opinions with one another. It exists to silence anyone who challenges the Biden administration and the oligarchs in Silicon Valley who support
Vio.
the Biden administration. And
everybody
to that
follow
end, they've
Vio.
censored the former president, the New York Post, Charlie Kirk, the Babylon Bee, this show.
Everyone follow Vio.
Last night,
right
Twitter
now.
suspended a very popular account
Hit the
called
follow
Libs
button.
of TikTok. Now, Libs of TikTok is essentially an account that finds video of liberals talking about themselves and their own beliefs and posts it. It was, of course, targeted because once you see what these people are saying,
Make the great. Thanks for the 10 tier
they
1.
discredit themselves and horrify normal people. Here's some of the footage Libs of TikTok has unearthed.
I want to talk to the kids. Sometimes human beings are more than boy or girl. Sometimes we're something else. Sometimes we're both. Sometimes we kind of float in between.
Mostly I feel feminine or non-binary. Today I'm feeling really femme and cat-like as well. Yeah.
I shouldn't have to hide or lie or be embarrassed about a natural function my body does. So all that to say, I am on my period. You heard me. Having a period for the first time in 6 years. And not just any period, the period from hell.
I identify as a threat, a nightmare, and a goddess, so please bow down to me. I do not believe in God, I don't worship the devil, but yes, I am a Satanist, which means I am my own God and I worship myself.
So for the crime of letting liberals talk about themselves and showing people what they actually think.
So basically, these are tiny little accounts of people who live alternative lifestyles or have a non-standard gender expression, harming no one. Nothing they said is harmful at all. You have to be batshit crazy to think that. It's now being amplified on Tucker Carlson with all of their handles exposed so that they could get smashed by nonstop death threats and hate because they put their faces on their TikTok account. And Libs of TikTok trolls through tags for these kind of communities to surface them for the most vile alt-right haters in the fucking planet. And they want to be able to be anonymous while profiting from that.
I think Media Matters did a hit piece on Libs of TikTok, described it as hate, and Twitter dutifully pulled it off the platform. That's exactly how that system works. So the creator of Libs of TikTok remains anonymous, Why? Because we live in a country where you can't even say what you think without threats of violence against you if you're not.
Which is exactly their purpose. To take these small accounts saying, sometimes I feel feminine and I kind of feel like a cat today. Meow. Who gives a shit? And to expose that person to violent threat. That's the whole point of the account. They want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to expose all these people to viral hate, profit from it, and stay anonymous. Nah, I don't think so, big boy. You want to get in the marketplace of ideas? You want to shit on people? You're going to be exposed.
On the left, but we are happy to talk to that person over the phone, which we are doing now. The creator of Libs of TikTok joins us on the line. Don't know your name. Glad you're on. So you were pulled off Twitter after you were attacked by Media Matters for disseminating hate. Were you surprised by this?
And notice that their fucking logo is all about gender. It's all about finding gender non-conforming people and exposing them to fascist hate, so that gender non-conforming people can never post on social media. That's their fucking plan.
Exactly. No, I was not surprised at all. It definitely felt like a very organized attack that allowed to get me suspended.
So how big, and this is not the first platform from which you've been suspended for holding up liberals in their own voice to the rest of the country. Where else have you been kicked off?
I have been kicked off of TikTok, and I've gotten multiple violations on Instagram.
It's just remarkable to me in a country like ours that you feel the need to remain anonymous. Tell us why you're not giving us your name tonight.
Even though she was never anonymous, having associated her real name and profession in the area she lived in when she first created the account, whoops.
Well, I've gotten a few death threats. I get a ton of hate mail, and the left has been showing recently, how they would treat people who disagreed with them. It's funny because some of the death threats, I've reported it, and the people, they still have their accounts on Twitter. So, you can threaten violence and still keep your account, but you can't play a video of what a leftist
Thank you for the 9 months.
Right. So your opinions are violence. Their violence are protected speech. You see how that works. Thank you so much for your bravery. And again, I just can't overstate, you're not even giving your opinions necessarily, you're just holding up their opinions for the country to see, and for revealing them in their natural habitat. You're on the run. Creator of Libs of TikTok, whatever your name is. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Subscribe to the...
So what was the Libs? So that entire Tucker Carlson thing was to expose 3 random anonymous people with small accounts to vile hate. Fucking gross. The role I've seen this account playing is finding new characters for right-wing propagandists. Gillian Brandstetter, media strategist for the ACLU. It's relying on the endless stream of content from TikTok and the internet to cast any individual trans person as a new villain in their story. Yeah, they're basically trying to find lolcows, which is something that alt-right people do. They try to find people with who are gender non-conforming, find people with developmental issues, find people with mental health illness, find people that are on the autism spectrum, and exploit them and ruthlessly bully them and put them in social situations where they don't have the skills, or persecute them, lie about them, slander them until they get to the point where they feel suicidal, or they delete themselves from the internet. That's what lolcow is. It's basically a person that you abuse for your own pleasure and for content. It's a far right internet phenomenon. If you ever hear anybody saying like, LOL, I like lolcows, you should fucking block that person and get rid of that person from any kind of internet content you have, because they represent a threat to you and they are a dangerous person. Throughout its increasingly popular posts and despite numerous media appearances, the account has remained anonymous, but the identity of the operator of Libs of TikTok is traceable through a complex online history and reveals someone who has been plugged into right-wing discourse for 2 years and is now helping to drive it. An account in search of a voice and a big break from Joe Rogan. Chaya Ratchik has been working as a real estate salesperson in Brooklyn when, in early November 2020, she created the account that would eventually become Libs of TikTok. Under her first handle, Shia 698305552, She minimized COVID, cast doubt on the election results, and promoted a dubious story about a child sex trafficking ring. November 23rd, 2020, Wkyk changed handles, this time by going by Shia Ray and identifying herself publicly as a real estate investor in Brooklyn. Of course! First name, bunch of numbers, is a real estate parasite. She began doubling down on election fraud conspiracies using QAnon-related language. Early in December, she joked about launching a clothing line titled "Voter Fraud is Real." In January 2021, Wkyk started talking about traveling to D.C. in support for Trump on January 6th at Stop the Steal rally. When violence broke out on the Capitol that day, she tweeted a play-by-play account claiming to be on the ground. There were rubber bullets from law enforcement. One hit right next to me, she said. She posted videos from the crowd and spoke of tear gas being deployed nearby. After claiming she left the riot, she used Twitter to downplay the event, claiming it was peaceful compared to a BLM protest. Later that month, Wkyk cycled through two more Twitter names, this time focusing on state politicians. First under the handle Chaya Wkyk, under the display name Chaya Wkyk, and then under the new handle Cuomo Must Go. She railed against New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, calling for him to resign. She promoted the efforts to recall Governor of California Gavin Newsom. She also began posting that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, calling him actually brilliant. By early last March, she pivoted to a parody account called Houseplant POTUS, pretending to tweet as if she was a houseplant living with President Biden. She revamped her avatar to look like a small shrub with Biden's face on the leaves. At that point in time, she also claimed to be proudly Orthodox Jewish, live in Brooklyn, and work in real estate in her Twitter bio. But the houseplant parody never really took off. On April 19, 2021, she pivoted her account once again, this time to Libs of TikTok. Just 4 months after getting started, Libs of TikTok got its big break. Joe Rogan started promoting the account to the millions of listeners in his hit podcast. He mentioned it several times on the show in August, then again in late September. Libs of TikTok is one of the greatest fucking accounts of all time, he said. With his seal of approval, Wkyk's following skyrocketed. Wow, dude.
Gone on Libs of TikTok.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Yes. Libs of TikTok on Twitter is one of the greatest fucking accounts of all time. It's every day. They scour all these really super crazy liberal TikTok pages. Ever gone on Libs of TikTok?
So in other words, trying to expose the tiniest of social media accounts to a vile stream of vitriol and hate. Absolutely terrible, dude. Man, it sucks that Joe Rogan became a chud. But it doesn't surprise me, Chad. It's socialism or barbarism. A liberal won. He's profoundly unpopular. Man, to see how much Joe Rogan, we almost had Joe, and he slipped away. And now he's pushing the far right. Libs of TikTok gained more prominence throughout the end of last year, cementing its spot in the right-wing media outrage cycle. Its attacks on the LGBTQ plus community also escalated. By January, Wkyk's page was leading hard into groomer discourse, calling for any teacher who comes out as gay to their students to be fired on the spot. Any teacher who utters the words, "I came out to my students," should be fired on the spot. Glenn Greenwald likes this account. Absolutely vile. Her anti-trans tweets went especially viral. She called on her followers to contact schools that were allowing boys into the girls' bathrooms and pushed the false conspiracy theory that schools were installing litter boxes in bathrooms for children who identify as cats. She also purported that adults who teach children about LGBTQ plus identities are abusive, thus being gender nonconforming or an ally to the LGBTQ plus community is a mental illness, and referred to schools as government-run indoctrination camps for the LGBTQ plus community. Libs of TikTok is shaping our entire political conversation about the rights of LGBTQ people to participate in society, Drennan said. It feels like they're single-handedly taking us back to a decade in terms of public discourse around LGBTQ rights. It's been nothing we've ever really seen. And this is the thing. This is the reality, chat. That's what it's about. It's about putting gay people back in the closet. It's about making being trans socially unacceptable. It's about firing people from their jobs if they dare speak about their own identity, their legal identity, their moral identity. Being gay is moral. Being trans is moral. There is absolutely nothing wrong with expressing your gender identity or sexuality as part of your identity. It's the weirdo freaks, conservatives, that make gay being gay about sex acts. It's the weirdo freaks that make being trans about the genitals. That is fucking sick. That is sexualizing children. Scratch a liberal at a fascist bleed from Glenn Greenwald to Pepe Le Pew. I mean, I don't know, man. I think Glenn is way worse than Pepe Le Pew at this point, which is embarrassing to say, but like all the good stuff Glenn did is well in the past now. $10 that Libs of TikTok is funded by a chud billionaire, and the Rogan shout out was pretty much paid publicity to reach more trud listeners of that fucking moron. I don't know, man. This story is fucking gross, man. By March, Libs of TikTok was directly impacting legislation. DeSantis press secretary Christiana Pushaw credited the account with opening her eyes and informing her views on the state's restrictive legislation that bans discussion of sexuality or gender identity in kindergarten through 3rd grade, referred to by critics as the Don't Say Gay bill. She and Libs of TikTok have interacted with each other at least 138 times publicly, according to a report by Media Matters. This is fucking batshit, dude. Libs of TikTok really, truly opened my eyes on this. Ron DeSantis press secretary Christiana Pushaw has been instrumental in slandering opponents of Florida's Don't Say Gay bill as groomers. She credits the anonymous Twitter account Libs of TikTok for her radicalization. Pushaw and Libs of TikTok have interacted 138 times. This is a horrifying amount of influence for an anonymous harassment account to have over the lives of Floridians. Pushaw appears to take tips from the account on teachers to target. Narcissistic Florida 1st grade teacher has breakdown over the thought of not being able to talk about her marriage. Wow. Hey, Glenn! Hey, Glenn Greenwald! You don't have a problem with this? She seems emotionally stable. Teachers are desperate to talk to little kids about sex. It's a disorder. DeSantis should use this in a campaign ad. She's a 4th grade teacher, by the way. Where does she teach? Literally working with government officials to target people, and you're defending Libs of TikTok? For more background on how Pushaw has treated the narrative that opponents of the Don't Say Gay bill are a threat to children, check out my piece from a couple weeks ago. Fucking disgusting. I follow, like, and retweet Libs of TikTok. We have got to get this. I mean, my interactions with that account are public, and added that she's a strong supporter of its mission. As the legislation progressed before eventually being signed into law on March 28th, Libs of TikTok ramped up the attacks, flooding its feed with accusations of grooming. The right-wing media and influential conservative figureheads used anti-LGBTQ content from Libs of TikTok as fuel for their arguments.
So immediately after the Supreme Court's decision on marriage, HRC began aggressively promoting the idea that the so-called transgender community was being gravely oppressed by American society, by you, and needed their help. In other words, all good people needed to send more money to HRC right away to help the transgender community. So the Human Rights Campaign's 2014 annual report, which you read today, barely mentions the word transgender. There's no reference at all of any kind to the idea that a person can change his sex just by wishing it so. That was during Barack Obama's 2nd term. But even then, that seemed like a pretty far-fetched claim, but not anymore. It's at the center of our national conversation and at the center of the Human Rights Campaign. Their annual report this year promotes transgenderism on virtually every single page. There's a long write-up on the organization's Transgender Justice Initiative and a prominently displayed photograph of Joe Biden's latest Admiral, Rachel Levine. So the rebranding worked terrifically. HRC now raises millions and millions from companies like Amazon and Apple and Google and Goldman Sachs and Raytheon and Morgan Stanley, etc. Every power center in the American economy, all of which fully support now the transgender project. So if you're wondering why, the moment that same-sex marriage became legal in the United States, at that exact moment, your kids' teachers began to deny the reality of biological sex, now you know why. It was all part of a fundraising campaign from Washington. If you've ever felt like you're caught in the middle of somebody else's fundraising campaign, guess what? You are. And as a result of that fundraising campaign, here's what elementary schools look like now.
This has been my first year in preschool with a class of my own. We've been talking about gender and skin color and consent and empathy and our bodies and autonomy. It's been fabulous.
I teach my elementary school students about gender identity. Some people are girls, some are boys, some are both, some are neither.
I might tell this kid, we do have a flag in the class that you can pledge your allegiance to. And he looks around and he goes, oh, that one?
So So every emotionally marginal young woman with a nose ring now teaches at your kid's school. I teach my elementary school students about gender identity, said one, on TikTok, of course. So how is a parent supposed to respond to this?
I think, you know, when I watch that, I mean, if you're transgender or gay, you need to understand that this is a death threat to you. Like they're not going to stop. They've said that you're a groomer. They're going to try to, I mean, economic hardship is just the first step. This is fucking foul. That is fucking foul, dude. They're worshiping a rainbow trans flag. Now let's worship the American. This is totally normal, chat. This is totally normal. This is totally fucking normal, chat.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Thank you very, very much for letting us little kids live here. It really, really was nice of you. You didn't have to do it. And it's really not creepy to have little kids mindlessly recite this anthem every day and pledge their life to a government before they're old enough to really think about what they're saying. This is not a form of brainwashing. This is not a form of brainwashing. This is not a form of brainwashing. This is really the greatest country in the whole world. All the other countries suck. And if this country ever goes to war, as it often wants to do, I promise to help go and kill all the other countries' kids. God bless Johnson & Johnson. God bless GE. God bless Citigroup. Amen.
Very good, kids. Now come and get your Ritalin.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chad. That was the parody. I meant to show you this. That was the parody. I apologize.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm sorry, but that's fucking perverse. They didn't have a problem with having children pledge allegiance to a flag at kindergarten well before they're ever able to really cognize what they're doing. But if you tell someone that somebody has two daddies or two mommies, which some of their classmates will have, that's illegal? What happens when you have a child who has gay parents come into the class? Are they not allowed to talk about it? Are they not allowed to say, I have two mommies? Is that illegal? Didn't we end school segregation? Why are there only white kids there? Yeah, that was South Carolina. Weird that it's only white kids in that class, huh? When I was a kid, not only did we have to do the Pledge of Allegiance, we had to listen to records with God Bless America and It's a Grand Old Flag, etc. It's like when people yelled at Colin Kaepernick for involving politics in sports. It's like, bro, have you totally forgot how the NFL bends over backwards to invoke military flyovers, soldiers during pregame and halftime, and has an entire amount of salute to service, indoctrinating people with pro-American military propaganda, and fans don't even register it. They participate. It was called Heritage Elementary. Earlier that evening, Fox's Jesse Waters quoted a tweet shared by Libs of TikTok that claimed to represent internal messages from a fourth grade teacher who wanted to celebrate and promote LGBTQ plus pride in her classroom. Waters also sourced multiple clips from Libs of TikTok in a March 15th segment on the left's, quote, sneaky and quite sinister attempts to wage psychological warfare on our children in the classroom. Waters and his guest, the Daily Wire's Matt Walsh, went on to claim leftist radicals are brainwashing American kids.
For the last few weeks, our attention has been laser focused on Ukraine, and for good reason. But it's also taken our eyes off some really important things happening here in America, like the left's sneaky and quite sinister attempts to wage psychological warfare on our children in the classroom. Watch.
Okay, today is a teacher work day. That's what this shirt means, right? Teacher work day shirt. Mulan with a booty on the front. This is appropriate.
I usually love my job, but lately, the one driver that doesn't listen just constantly misgenders me. This person pretty much made it so I hate going to work.
If you were banned from teaching critical race theory, how would you continue to teach it?
I'll be gone, I guess. Luckily, there's a teacher shortage, so I'll find somewhere else to do the same thing.
Joining me now is Matt Walsh, host of the Matt Walsh Show. Matt, it's almost like they're throwing it in our face. Is that how you feel?
Yes, especially when you see how they're all dressed and they look. I mean, when I went to school, teachers, they all look like librarians, and now they look like drug addicts and carnies. And it's just, but it's part and parcel with the overall issue, which is the total moral anarchy in the public school system, and also the fact that it's overrun by these leftist radicals. Because guess what? You know, when you look at the stuff happening on college campuses and all the crazy Marxist students and everything, and we like to console ourselves and say, well, they'll get into the real world and they'll change. No, they get into the real world and they become teachers. So the system just feeds itself, and this is what we end up with.
And they're so stupid, they're putting it out all over social media. It's like those criminals that commit crimes and then they take pictures of themselves with the stolen merchandise and put it on Instagram. Do you worry, though, that the country is so focused on Ukraine that the left is doing stuff behind our back? I just saw the other day that they just announced Biden shattered more illegal immigration records. Like, he doesn't deport anybody. Like, no one.
So this is who this guy is, chat. Here is Matt Walsh's Twitter account. Georgia Republican governor signed a bill putting new restrictions on mail voting, giving the legislature greater influence over elections. This is a good start, but we need laws that will prevent many more people from voting. A huge swath of the electorate has no business in the voting booth. Testing and other requirements could weed out the most unfit. Now, Matt, I regret to inform you of this, but the Republican base is white, non-college educated people. They're not very good at the tests. So you would need to do what they did in Jim Crow, which is not make the white people take the test. That was the problem that you have there, is if you start weeding out your own base, they won't be able to vote, man. Don't forget how he's cool with pedophilia in the Catholic Church, but if it's homosexual priests that are the real issue, yeah, he's a fucking freak. He ironically calls himself a theocratic fascist. I mean, that's what he is. That's what he is. Libs of TikTok repost content from TikTok. This is important work because of the site's it's a site millions of kids use. Left is mad at her because they don't want us to know what our kids are being exposed to. We're not supposed to see that stuff. Only our kids are. You know, what can he say here? What can he say? By the way, have we seen anything in any of these TikToks that is actually even objectionable? Has there been a single thing that's actually been objectionable? There's no discussions of explicit sex. There is no discussions of trying to convince children to change their identity. There's very general descriptions of either their own identity or stuff like some people are boys, some people are girls, some people are both, some people are neither. Holy shit. Thanks, Gay Scorpio. Cringe, sure. Wrong, no. People are cringe. Have you seen a conservative?
One's been deported. ICE hasn't made any arrests.
The twerk shirt? Children don't know what that means. They don't know what that means. Have you watched any fucking content that's children's content? There's always jokes thrown in that are innuendo that children will never know because adults, you know, that's part of adulthood, is you can say things that the children don't understand what it is. And correct me if I'm mistaken, but wasn't Matt Walsh out as trying to trick trans people into one of his homophobic documentaries? Yeah, he was caught.
I worry about that. Do you worry about that?
Yeah, I certainly do worry about it. I mean, of course, things that are happening across the world are always going to be...
The twerk shirt was worn on a teacher work day, not a regular school day. I mean, first of all, I don't even think teachers can wear t-shirts most of the time to work. So it's like that's only during teacher in-service days. Who gives a fuck? Honestly, who gives a fuck?
Important and all of that, but this is stuff that's happening right now. I mean, look, in the school system, we've got 50 million kids that go every day into these indoctrination camps, and that's just public schools. Private schools aren't much better. I got news for you.
I did go to high school 20 years ago, so maybe there's different rules these days.
This is happening in our country right now. Our kids are being subjected to this every single day. You know, and for them, it's they got to imagine sitting in a classroom with somebody like that every single day. You know, 7 hours a day, five days a week for so many years.
Carnies. That's a good way to describe it. Matt Walsh, thanks so much for joining us.
Discussing Florida's Don't Say Gay bill on March 9th, Fox host Laura Ingraham aired clips tweeted by the Libs of TikTok account the day before. Ingraham cited the clips of a summer camp leader and preschool teacher as evidence of supposed grooming, demanding when did our public schools, any schools, become what are essentially grooming centers for gender identity radicals.
Get down with yourself, explore your own body. Masturbation is really healthy, and I recommend it to people of all ages. All ages. As soon as my nephews could talk, they were doing that.
This has been my first year in preschool with a class of my own, teaching alongside another queer neurodivergent educator, and we have been rocking our Tuesday class. We've been talking about gender and skin color and consent and empathy and our bodies and autonomy. It's been fabulous.
There's literally nothing wrong with what this lady just said. Tell me what's wrong about this. Tell me what the wrong is right here.
This has been my first year in preschool with a class of my own, teaching alongside another queer neurodivergent educator, and we have been rocking our Tuesday class. We've been talking about gender and skin color and consent and empathy.
All of those things are going, you have to talk about all of those things in a preschool. Children start talking and they go, why is he black? And why does he have dark skin and I have light skin? They start to like, as they develop, they kind of get a better sense of how their bodies are different from other people's. And then they get interested in, and they don't have this, the same kind of social restraint that you do. And they go up and push people. One of the things a toddler will do is if they see another toddler playing with a toy, go up and push the toddler to take the toy. One of the first things you have to teach a toddler is respect for others, consent. You can't touch other people without asking. This is basic developmental shit. What is going on? I literally, what is wrong with this?
And our bodies and autonomy. It's been fabulous.
What?
Oh when did our public...
What's wrong with that? This is normal shit. You want to send your kid to a preschool where the other kids can push them and beat them and take toys and can yell at them? Like, what are you talking about? It doesn't even make sense. Like, what are they objecting to? That she said she was a queer neurodivergent teacher? I literally have, I'm baffled. As far as the first thing about masturbation, and this is something that now this is an uncomfortable conversation to have. But let me just say this. When you hit puberty, we all remember what it was like. I remember when I was 12. It's not, I mean, this is not something for adults to sexualize for their own pleasure. That's when it becomes sickening and a disorder. But teaching a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old about sex ed is fucking normal. And you don't want 12-year-olds having sex with each other because they don't know what's going on. You can't get pregnant at that age. It can cause sterility. It can kill someone. You need to have sex ed before children go through puberty. And because of our disgusting chemical baths that we all live in, some young girls are having puberty as young as 8 or 9. You gotta have sex. You have to begin to teach people about puberty and development before they go through it at all, not after. This is just the way it is. A girl needs to know about a period before she has her period or when she has her period. There's nothing sexualizing about that. Little kids don't masturbate like we think they do. It's not sexual for them. It's touching a part of their body that feels good. It's important to teach them about privacy and that they need to know when they grow up. Yes. This is all sorts of stuff that is uncomfortable to talk about and is not really appropriate for a live stream. Shooting off the cuff. I'm not gonna talk about development on the live stream. There's just, quite frankly, not worth it. It's not worth it. But we're not going to stop responsible, age-appropriate teaching because conservative brains are stupid. As Florida Republicans move closer to achieving their stated long-term goal of making 100% of the state schools eligible for school vouchers, Horichan suggests that once the state manages to lure 1.5 million students away from public schools to get those kids across that Rubicon, as he put it, the resulting loss of funding and forced consolidation would alter the educational landscape so radically that not even future Democratic governors could change it back. Is it the point of education to discuss difficult topics at a safe space where questions are encouraged? Of course. The first one was talking about 1 to 2-year-olds. 1 to 2-year-olds are interested in their own bodies. You can't have a I mean, like, this is reality, dude. I don't know what to tell you. Try to have, dude, you don't need to tell me. You don't need to tell me that. They want those education dollars for themselves and their private charters. This is what it means to get there.
Any schools become what are essentially grooming centers for gender identity radicals. As a mom,
I had to attend sex ed because I was a troubled child, and that actually saved me from getting pregnant / STDs. No shit. See, I grew up moving every 3 years, chat. And And I spent my time in military schools and public schools. I never went to a private school in my life. I've gone to public schools and good public schools, aka wealthier, suburban, whiter. I've gone to private public schools when I was on a military base. I've experienced all, I've always gone to public institutions, and they did an incredibly good job of teaching these subjects to their students. I was fortunate enough that these subjects were taught in a responsible adult way, and we didn't have psychotic freak evangelical Christians trying to ruin and disinform and uninform me. I actually understood about the human body when I entered puberty. I understood about contraception and how my body worked and how pregnancy worked. I'm forever grateful that I got a proper public health education when I was growing up. So I never had to have these kind of mistakes altering the course of my life. I went to a private Catholic school, and sex ed wasn't controversial at all. It was weird and awkward, of course, as sex ed tends to be as a kid, but it was taught it was supposed to. Catholic theology is against the use of contraception, so I doubt it was as good unless the school was teaching some other curriculum. I am for vouchers that allow you to go to any other public school. No. I think we need to do the Finnish model, which is the neighborhood school is the school you go to, and there is no private schools. There is no public. There is no parochial schools. Children go to their local public institution, and it better be as good as possible. Every school is a good school, but Americans want their kid to have an unfair advantage over other kids because they're psychotic, greedy, individualist psychos.
Appalling. It's frightening. It's disgusting. It's despicable. Florida just passed a bill to keep this type of
liberals are sexually grooming elementary students. This is absolutely batshit crazy, man. I think conservatives are just secretly mad that they don't get this amount of choice, control, openness over their identity when they were growing up, so they feel robbed along with brain rot and want to cry how they could have been a different path, now acting like if they couldn't, no one could have it now. I just think that I think you have to understand that billionaires want control of this society, and they are using any way they can to stir up masses to give them the right to cut their taxes and deregulate. That's it. And they're creating this culture war narrative because they understand that there's a lot of backward Americans with dumb beliefs. It's the capitalist mode of production applied to social relations, hyper-individualism, ruthless competition, selfishness, etc. Your kid's education is a vital part of that fight. Fuck capitalism. Absolutely evil.
Brainwashing out of schools. Democrats, though, claim the bill is bigoted, branding it as the Don't Say Gay bill. Well, nice try. The real controversy, though, isn't this bill. It's that school.
You argue for the sake of arguing. I wouldn't allow my 15-year-old to castrate himself and transition until he reaches adulthood and knows what he's doing. Many trans people detransition because of the harsh decision-making. I brought up the collateral damage issue to stop VS virtue signaling. Just because I disagree doesn't make me more America murder kids here. Spare me the hypocrisy. First of all, medical transition is not recommended for a 15-year-old. If you're talking about gender reassignment, because you need to fully develop into an adult. Now, people do puberty blockers have been recommended as medical treatment for people with gender dysphoria. It requires a lot of psychiatric and medical consultation. But that doesn't do anything. The puberty blockers can be withdrawn and development resumed. It allows someone to make a choice. And if they decide to make that choice one way, they can. Detransition is a tiny, tiny fragment of the trans community of people who have gone through transition. And the majority of reasons why people detransition is why they were insufficiently passing and they were pressured by family or social conditions so hostile that they decided to transition back so that their life didn't suck as hard. That's why people transition. The bona fide ID transition because my gender is that I was wrong about my gender thing is a tiny, tiny fragment of the trans community, an already small fraction of society. So when you're saying 1% of 1%, yeah, should detransitioners be respected? Yes, because everybody should be respected for their gender. But people sometimes make decisions that they later regret. Some people get a tubal ligation or a vasectomy, and then they change their mind, and they regret that decision. But I'm not going to ban tubal ligations and vasectomies because some percentage of people go back and change their mind later. That's madness. Adults get to make those kind of decisions about their body. And we should pursue what the medical science says is the best outcomes for people who suffer from gender dysphoria. It's not that fucking hard. If someone bought a house and regretted it, no one should ever be able to buy a house. People get to make all sorts of decisions that they later regret later. That's just how it goes. Don't let the detransition strawmanners find out their surgical regret for knee surgery or cosmetic surgery or a million other decisions that people make. I had my tubes tied and I would totally regret it, but it was my choice. I mean, tubal reversal is a thing that you might be able to get, but that's just the way it is. A decision you make and regret is always going to be less severe than the trauma of being forced into choices you didn't make. These people don't care about trans people. They want them out of society to reinforce gender norms and cis-normative society. I'm trans, but I'm scared to take HRT because I don't have the money to freeze sperm, and I want kids one day. The solution to that isn't to ruin the lives of trans people and forbid them from transitioning and make sperm banks cheaper and to financially support trans people. I mean, there's a variety. Listen, I mean, ultimately, this is one of those things where the people are trying to fearmonger. Basically, they're trying to create a situation that doesn't exist. Let's press play.
Schools are peddling gender ideology when our international rankings in math, science, and reading are down across the board. Joining me now is Keisha King, Florida mother and executive director of Moms for America. Keisha, is this a battle that's turning what we used to call the soccer mom vote into the culture mom vote?
Well, Laura, I think what's happening is that parents are being pushed aside. It is changing culture, and it's definitely what I am seeing is that parents are not being considered when these ideologies and these changes are trying to be made. They want to take control of our children. That is definitely what I see when I see these types of this pushback for bills like this. I do not understand why teachers or administrators would come out so strongly against something as simple as saying we don't want sexual identity and gender identity to be taught to kids as young as 4 and 5 years old.
So we can't talk about princes and princesses, husbands and wives, fathers and sons, daughters and mothers. Wait, that's batshit? Oh, you meant we are going to teach it just what I agree with only, not what is actual reality. That is the key. They want to create a society where young children are indoctrinated and then they're introduced to these things as variants, as heresies, as deviants, that it can be targeted and hated and despised.
This is simple comprehension. We've known this for decades, and I'm not sure why there's such pushback now.
Okay, let's get back. Wow, we really went down the rabbit hole on this Libs of TikTok. Fox News host Jesse Waters and Tucker Carlson began featuring content straight from Libs of TikTok on air, with Carlson urging his viewers to follow it before it's banned if you want to know what may be happening in your child's school. As the account has grown in prominence, Wkyk has taken steps to obscure her identity. Though she has done numerous high-profile media appearances, she's appeared anonymously. However, when registering the domains of liboftiktok.us last October, she used her full name and cell phone number linked to her real estate salesperson contact information. On Saturday, software developer Travis Brown, who is working on a project with support from Prototype Fund, an organization that backs open source projects, unearthed the account's Twitter history and posted a thread detailing information about its profile changes. When a reporter called the phone number registered to Wkyk's real estate profile in libsoftiktok.us, the woman who answered hung up after the reporter identified herself as calling from the Washington Post. A woman at the address listed to Wkyk's name in Los Angeles declined to identify herself. On Monday night, a tweet from Glenn Greenwald confirmed the house that was visited belonged to Wkyk's family. Oh, baby! Thanks, Glenn. Though Wkyk has claimed to run the account alone, last August, Grant Lowley, a lawyer and Republican operative, filed a trademark for Libs of TikTok as a news reporter service. Lowley has said he is not at liberty to comment when reached by the Post. I don't do this for money or fame, Wkyk told the New York Post, which, like all other outlets interviewing her, allowed her to speak on the condition of anonymity in February while comparing herself to Project Veritas. I'm not some politician or blue check journalist. I feel like there are so many small stories that are so important that aren't getting out, and that's what I'm here for. In other anonymous interviews, she claims to have left New York for somewhere in California, recently turning the account into a full-time job. For a while, she was soliciting donations through Venmo. While Libs of TikTok briefly had a TikTok account of its own, it was suspended for violating community guidelines. Last week, the account was briefly suspended from Twitter for a second time for violating the platform's rules on targeted harassment. The Libs of TikTok continues to amass followers across the internet, has more than 65,000 followers on Instagram, nearly 10,000 on YouTube, and a robust presence on right-wing YouTube competitor Rumble, along with other right-wing apps like Gab and Getter. It also building out an email database through its newsletter platform, Review. Wkyk has said in interviews that she crowdsources the content for the feed from a flood of messages she receives every day. This lazy fucker doesn't even look! She just waits for trolls to do her work for her and makes the money! You and Fingies, thanks for the tier 1s. I appreciate that. And Brosifer, thank you for gifting a sub as well. Why did you copying Hassan with the breaking news? Did the Warhawks get to you? Yeah, but yes, Putin bad. Because I'm not stupid and I'm not trying to get banned. You're not going to hear me you're not going to see me get banned from Twitch. Knock on wood. For pro-Russian for propaganda. You fucking kidding me? He sucks. He's a fascist. The fuck? I'm not going down for him. Fuck that. Why don't they, it's not like he's some sort of leftist. In that sense, Libs of TikTok is a collective molded to the hive mind of a right-wing internet. She views her account as giving a voice and platform to concerned parents and ordinary citizens. I see a shared spirit in Libs of TikTok and the appetite for it in right-wing media more broadly, which is turning neighbor against neighbor and turning any individual into an enforcer of this very strict gender regime, Brandstetter said. There's a deep sense of paranoia this rhetoric inspires and is extremely volatile. It's more than playing with fire. It inspires a vigilante spirit. This is Civil War shit. You know what this reminds me of, chat? It reminds me of this. We've talked about this before, but Der Sturmer was basically the Fox News it was basically the Jews of Germany. If it existed today, it would be Jews of TikTok. It's the same idea. It's the same idea. It's virulently anti-Semitic, just as Libs of TikTok is virulently homophobic and transphobic. What does it do? What did it do? It gave itself an outwardly serious appearance. It ran obscene material such as blood libel and graphic caricatures of Jews, as well as sexually explicit anti-communist and anti-monarchist propaganda. As early as 1993, Stryker was calling for the extermination of Jews and Der Sturmer. So they would, like, anytime a Jewish person committed a crime, it would be like the Jewish crime update. And the purpose of that is to create a sense that these Jews have this separateness and this something wrong with Jews. Because when a white German, a so-called Aryan German, committed pedophilia, that was just a bad apple. That was a mentally ill guy. Says nothing about Germanness. But if a Jewish person did the same thing, well, that says something about Jewishness. Sort of like in America, when a white man shoots up a mall, he is a lone wolf or very troubled. If a black guy shoots up a mall, that says something about black on black crime. That says something about blackness and their culture. That's how these right-wingers do it. It's the same shit. But there is a happy ending, chat. There is a happy ending. You know what happened to the guy who founded Der Sturmer? You know what happened to him? You know what happened to that guy? You want to know what happened to the guy who founded Der Sturmer? Strecker was convicted of being an accessory to crimes against humanity and was executed by hanging. Pretty good. There are happy endings. Wkyk boasts that several teachers have been fired as a result of being featured on the account. Tyler Wrynn, a former English teacher in Oklahoma, posted a video telling LGBTQ kids shunned by their parents that Wrynn was proud of them and loved them. It was featured on Libs of TikTok last week. Since being featured on the page, Wrynn has been barraged with harassment and death threat. Wow! Basically for just, wow. I've always seen myself as the type, this is fucking disgusting. He quit. He quit. He had to quit.
Posted by a now former Owasso 8th grade teacher is getting national attention for his pro-LGBTQ stance. It's what he says about parents that's made some upset. This is in the middle of a proposed law putting limits on sex education in schools. Fox 23's Scott Martin explains and shares what the district is saying.
Hey, if your parents don't love and accept you for who you are this Christmas,
I'm your parents now. I'm proud of you.
This viral TikTok has been viewed more than 200,000 times. It's one that's captured the attention of U.S. Senate candidate Jackson Lawmeyer, who called Tyler Wrynn a predator. That comment not sitting well with parents who support former teacher Tyler Wrynn. I reached out to the school district asking about Tyler Wrynn's employment. Parents who didn't want to go on camera say he taught 8th grade language arts, adding he was a safe haven for LGBTQ students. The district said, quote, Tyler Wrynn is no longer in the classroom, and the Board of Education accepted his resignation on April 11th at its regular monthly meeting, as this is a personnel
Hey, by the way, Glenn. Where's Glenn Greenwald? Glenn doesn't have a problem with this. Some guy said, if you are hated by your parents on the holidays, fuck them. I'm your parent now. Glenn Greenwald's against that? I thought he was a gay man. I guess when he gets rich enough. See, one of the things that happens is conservatives like Glenn Greenwald, who are gay, or in some other marginalized group, they make enough money and they think it insulates them. Hey, Glenn, it doesn't. It'll come for you eventually, buddy. Yeah, you may be at one of the last who gets taken down, but don't worry. They're going to take you down. That's really cool that some dude who makes $50K as a teacher gets fired. Really great stuff. He needs to sue everyone who writes grooming for defamation. Absolutely.
Issue, we are unable to provide further comment. Other parents are vocal about disliking Wrynn and call some of his TikTok videos inappropriate. I asked the district about its social media policy for teachers and staff. I was sent this from the district staff handbook that said, in part, staff members are expected to refrain from comments or statements in reference to race, color, sex, pregnancy, gender expression, or identity. Parents have been vocal on...
There's nothing wrong with what he said. Didn't violate any fucking policy.
Online, both in support and both against what the teacher posted. We're still working to try and talk with some of those parents when they're ready. Tyler Wrynn also is not ready to publicly comment.
I'm pretty sure he's going to stream that too. Yeah.
Covering news that matters. I'm Scott Martin, Fox 23 News.
I've always seen myself as the type of teacher to stand up for marginalized voices. I see fellow teachers on TikTok speak out for disenfranchised students, and they're getting the same sort of harassment too. Popularity of Libs of TikTok comes at a time when far-right communities across the internet have begun doxing school officials and calling for their execution. Parents of LGBTQ plus youth have been driven out of their towns. Local school board members have reported death threats. On a recent podcast, Wkyk said that as her following continues to grow, the fullest extent of her impact may not be realized until the elections this fall. She encouraged her audience to overtake school boards and run in local elections. These people, she said, referring to members of the LGBTQ plus community, some of them are literally evil and grooming kids. They should not be in schools. They should not be teachers. This is who Glenn Greenwald thinks should be protected. Are you over 4,000 now? Oh shit, I didn't check. Hell yeah. 4,011, chat. We fucking did it. Now we have a new goal. I need to set a goal for 5,000 subs, chat. We need to have a real goal. I guess I have one from, I still have to, do something else. I guess it's getting warm out. Oh shit. Oh shit. Meanwhile, actual groomers in the GOP are ignored. Absolutely. I fixed Laura Ingram's show. Okay. Okay, Sushi Mom. This is incredibly cursed. This is incredibly cursed. Dozens of arrested after Quran book burning sparks riots across Sweden. Oh, Jesus Christ. Remember, 10% into your IRA or Mr. Wonderful. Oh shit, you're right. Oh shit, you're right. All right, where were we? Okay, we were still reading the libs. This by the way, this article is fucking based. I'll eat a gadfly at 5K. Isn't there a 3K sub goal that hasn't been met? No, I did the hog reveal already. Hate crime sparks riots. I wonder how much of a reaction from white supremacists. I mean, what do you expect, man? I think you should be able to burn the Quran, but doing it is absolutely disgusting in a society that marginalizes people who practice Islam. It's fucking so like the people that would want to do that are not people that so they were probably doing a lot more than just burning a Quran. The Reddit thread on it was extremely xenophobic. Yeah. Members of the LGBTQ plus community who still attempt to use platforms like TikTok to educate people on gay or trans issues are subject to intense online abuse, causing a chilling effect. Libs of TikTok is playing on fears and misunderstandings of who trans people are while amping up extreme rhetoric and normalizing portraying queer people as inherently dangerous to children. It's hard to stoke moral panic without main characters, and the role of Libs of TikTok is finding those characters. Absolute wow, 3,000 comments on this. Holy shit. How much do you want to bet it's all right-wing hogs? I got banned on TikTok for communism? Really? No fucking way. No fucking way, Jinx. TikTok is owned by the Chinese government. How could they ever ban? The original article from Taylor included a link to Libs of TikTok's private work details. But she's been doing that her entire career. Wow, she's Jewish and supporting the far right? Yeah. Libs of TikTok won't go away either way. Libertarian Pat. Indignant veteran. Okay, a hate-mongering coward who moved to liberal Los Angeles. Every single one of these right-wing ghouls is like, if we're in the forgotten America. Where do you live? L.A., Manhattan, South Beach, Austin. If they're really slumming it, they're in Denver. Every single one of these. See, this is what these conservative ghouls, they want to live the cosmopolitan lifestyle. Madison Cawthorn was right.